Hi, this is Matt again. I am going to show some more things about ShapeStriker, but this time I'm going to focus on the technology involved. In other words, I'm going to show the Unity stuff I actually did to make the game work. I suppose starting with the scenes is a place to start. So I've got a splash screen, a main menu, an instruction screen, credits, a win screen, a lose screen, and then each level. So the game starts in the splash screen. The splash screen, I believe, gives you it's got a UI canvas with the game title on it. It's got a text element here that flashes with the script I made to indicate to press any key to continue. You press a key and it goes on to the main menu scene. You notice the music didn't change there. That's because I went ahead and used a music manager, and the script I have attached to that, let me show that, I marked it as do not destroy on load. Well, the first thing it does is it goes and it looks at the scene and finds all the music managers. And if there's already a music manager, it deletes itself so that the music manager that already exists is the one that will actually be used. And then there's just a basic function where another script or another class can call it and tell it to change the music to a certain clip down here. So there's that. Let's see. A lot of the UI stuff is pretty basic. It's just some canvases with buttons and a button manager thing with a script on it that has some functions for what to do if certain buttons are pressed. So I'll go ahead and move on to I suppose the credits and the instruction screens are actually fairly interesting. Well, I thought so at the time. Even the basic stuff seems interesting when you're learning it. It's one thing I'm learning to love about doing this. So the credit screen here has a canvas. It has a text element called title text and a credit text. And it has a script that is attached to, where is it? Okay, it's attached to this parent object for both of those text items called the credit scroll. It's got a speed and a camera speed. The camera speed makes the stars look like they're going faster as I scroll through. So you've got two things going on the credit screen. You've got the camera scrolling to make the stars look like they're going by, and then you've got the text moving up. Just every frame it just moves up. Very simple script. And then of course I've got a press escape script here that just waits for you to push escape, and then it loads the main menu screen, or a scene rather, sorry. Let's see here. Let's go to one of the actual levels. I can start talking about the core gameplay. So you've got a player object here. It has a lot of child things in here. It's got an afterburner. It's got a body, which has some child shapes underneath it. You can see some of them are deactivated, sorry. And those get turned on and off based on what you press while you're playing the game. You can see I have a little key up here in the scene. Spacebar turns you into a cube. Left click is pyramid, right click is circle. The script for doing that is player body changer. This one was pretty interesting to write. To be honest, if I were going to go through this thing and completely refactor everything, I'd probably change some of the things I used. I'd probably use some enumerators instead of strings. But so you've got the script references the various different body types as game objects. It has audio clips for different sounds, one of which is changing to a shape, one of which is reverting back to the capsule shape. It's got a public variable you can tweak in the editor you can tweak the game, tell it how long you want the player to be able to stay as a certain shape. It's got the audio source, which it gets on initialization, switches you to capsule. In the update function, it waits for the various keys that change the shapes, and then it uses some custom functions I made on this script to easily switch which mesh or shape is active for the ship's body. So the active sphere function checks to see if it's able to change, which means that this time interval hasn't expired yet, or has expired rather. It turns off the 3 bodies we don't want, and it plays the sound for changing shapes. It turns the sphere body on, and then it has a line that will, the invoke function here, after this amount of time, it will run this function, which will switch it back to a capsule. So in other words, it'll be whatever shape this is, and then after this amount of time here, it'll go back to being a capsule. The other functions for the different shapes are basically the same thing, and that's pretty much what it is. I also have a function here that returns a string indicating what the current shape is for the ship. This is used by another script that needs that information later on. And that script, I believe, is the one okay, yes, I'll show up the object scripts now. I'll use a sphere object as an example. I won't show each one. So there's a sphere object, pyramid object, cube object script, and they have a reference to the player. They have a reference to the current status of the player's ship body shape. They need to access the player controller so that they can tell the player to do things, namely, if this shape collides with a player that is its prey shape. I used the string names prey and predator here, so each one is different, but in the case of this one, the sphere object, the prey shape is a pyramid, and the predator shape is a cube. So the start shape is basically just going out and getting the references that it needs, and I have a score object that tracks the total number of shapes that has been spawned, so it increases that by 1. Right here is the key. This is the collision function. When something enters this shape's collider, which is a trigger, it asks the other object if it is tagged as the player. If it's not, then the function just quits. Nothing happens. Because if these shapes hit something that's not the player, I don't really care. But if we make it past that point, that means we have hit the player. So then we basically have this if statement that goes, gets the player state, gets its shape. If that is the predator shape, then we increment the variable for the number of shapes destroyed, because that means the player has successfully destroyed this sphere object, whatever this is attached to. I have prefabs. Let's see here. It goes and gets the player controller. It tells the player controller to play the collect sound, which is a sound you want to hear when you've successfully destroyed/collected an enemy shape. So that happens, and then it destroys itself. If the opposite situation happens, and the player that has hit the shape is this given shape's prey, then the player gets told to explode, which is a separate function I wrote on the player controller script, which is right here. And it basically turns off the afterburner. It destroys the script that follows the player. It sets the player's movement speed to 0. It destroys the ship's body. It sets off these various explosion prefabs that it has. It plays the explosion noise, and then it invokes this die function, which basically just destroys everything in the level and then changes to the death screen. So I'm not going to go through all the different scripts for the pyramid body shape and all that stuff. The only other thing I could think of that might even be remotely interesting would be the scorekeeper script. It's a basic class that just, when the level starts, it turns off the final score canvas because we don't want to see that while we're playing the game. We want to see it at the end. Shapes destroyed and total shapes are at 0. Those will get modified by other things in the game as it goes and as we successfully or unsuccessfully destroy shapes. It's got an update score canvas function that pretty much just does some math to figure out, you know, what's the total number of shapes that you've missed, how many have you gotten, and then it updates the text on that score canvas even while the game is playing, because we want it to be ready at the end of the level. And at the end of the level, it displays that, and it gives you your total, and it has a button to continue on. Those are really the key things that I had to come up with as far as how to script. It was a lot of fun to do. The script, I can't believe I haven't shown this yet. The spawner script is I think pretty good. I had a fun time making it. It has to be instantiated in the level. It's got some variables you can tweak here. It has an array of game objects that will be the things that are spawned just off the right edge of the screen as the game plays. And you can size this array of objects to whatever you want. I've got 2 asteroids in there because I wanted to up the chances of an asteroid a little bit, and then each shape basically. It has a designated variable for the weird shimmering watery thing at the end of each level. It has a variable you can set to tell it how long you want the level to be, how many things you want it to spawn, the distance that you want it to spawn away, which is 25. Anything closer is, you'll see it spawn, and that just breaks the immersion. So you can set the minimum and maximum amount of time between spawns, and if you bring these things closer together or make them shorter, it means that things spawn sooner and closer together. You can scale the asteroid size between 2 variables. In some of my later levels, these values that are larger. So that's basically it. I instantiate this spawner object script in all my levels and tweak the variables, and that just helps adjust the difficulty. And that does it for the little tech showcase for this game here, and I appreciate you watching.